Hello, hello, fabulous listeners. I'm Krystine, the Beauty Pro Coach, and I am here with Miss Stephanie Russell of Psychologically Safe on Instagram. Is that right, Stephanie?
Yeah, psychologically safe step. I know it's a mouthful.
It's okay. It's so perfect. So tell everybody who you are, what you do. How did you become Steph on Instagram?
Well, thank you for that, Christine. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
having me.
Absolutely.
I I work with leaders essentially for the most part, service providers as well, in
Mhm.
order to help them to achieve psychological safety within their salons. Now,
Mhm.
that means a lot of different things, but to put it down to I guess one word, it's culture. So,
Mhm.
how do we create a great culture, a great vibe between service providers, between stylists and their clients, and between the owner and their stylists?
Mhm.
And there are many elements there that create great culture. And so, I've really made it my mission to know or to kind of learn about as much as I can
Mhm.
about all of the areas of culture and the little intricacies that happen. I call it peopling. I help
I
people
love that.
people.
I love that. I love that. That's so cute. So you're also a beauty pro too, right?
Yeah, 20 years in the industry.
Oh my
So
gosh.
21 actually this year.
I
So
love that. Congrats.
thank
That's
you.
a big deal. Okay, so how did you fall into this? Like you're a beauty pro, are you a salon owner too?
I was a salon manager for a while. I'm
Okay.
actually a suite owner,
Okay.
and that is part of the story actually. So
Oh.
I fell into this because I knew I wanted to be a coach because I've worked for Redken for years and years and years.
Okay.
And I had coaches with that organization. And that element, that aspect of them helping me grow was something that I just knew that that's what I wanted to do full time eventually.
Hmm.
Now, I was still happy in the hair world, and so it wasn't a big rush for me to become a coach because I already was feeling pretty fulfilled. I just had that
Hmm.
calling. And what kind of coach or what area of coaching, I really wasn't sure about that. But then during the pandemic, I fell upon kind of different aspects of psychological safety. Like it just kind of fell into my lap through the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Hmm.
And so the next thing you know, I'm doing this like 1 day seminar, which turned into, oh, this is interesting. The beauty industry could use this. And it turned into being, a university diploma. And then it turned into in the topic. And then it turned into a 6 month mentorship program with one of the top leading Canadian psychological safety associations. And here we are 5 years later. But the reason why it was so important for me was because as much as I worked in amazing salons, and there is no blame towards the salon owner as such, but what I noticed were some themes. And then, of course, talking to some of my friends who had started salons,
Hmm.
and also being in the industry, teaching with Redken, traveling across North America, there's patterns here, Christine. And I'm sure you've seen them as a coach yourself.
Hmm.
And what I was noticing was most of the leaders in the salon industry simply did not have leadership training.
Yes.
And so that ended up really unfortunately creating spaces where it was totally unintentional on the salon owner's behalf
Hmm.
that culture can become toxic very easily when there's not systems or intention put behind how we lead. And most times, the salon owners, they're the highest earners in the salon. They're behind the chair. So they're trying to do their work behind the chair, be a full-time stylist. Then on top of that, they're taking on all of the money roles, like managing the money, right? Managing the business, managing all those things. And then how much energy do they have left to manage people?
Hmm.
And do they really know the peopling systems that are required? And although it's like, I think very natural for us to be people, right? We get into this industry because we love people.
Hmm.
But I think what ends up happening is that at the end of the day, how much energy do we have left to actually do that? And that's one of the main themes I've seen.
I love that. Now, you mentioned something about we hear about systems, salon systems, business boundaries, systems. Okay, but you mentioned people systems. Now, what are some of those that you can share? Because I know listeners and watchers, they're probably like, another set of systems? Oh my God. So what does what does people systems, what are those and how can we implement, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Essentially, they're the ones that we know about, which are
Mhm.
policies and procedures. I mean, it sounds really boring, but I think what is not recognized as much is the fact that one of the main threads of running a really great culture, which is what's needed. Because one of the things I didn't finish saying actually that I
Mhm.
meant to say was that I went to a suite because I couldn't find a salon that had the culture I was looking for at the time. Now,
Mhm.
there happens to be a couple here now where I am who there that if I wasn't so, if I wasn't so into the coaching, I might end up going there. But, at the time, there wasn't that culture, strong culture. And strong culture really comes down to one word, and that's trust.
Mhm.
And trust comes from consistency, right? Showing up consistently in the same way. And people trust, but do they trust that we're going to be there for them? Or do they trust that we are going to, like, they're trusting in fear? Like, I trust that I'm going to be, I'm not going to be able to depend on you for something. They might
Mm.
trust that undependedness, or what word am I looking for here? But,
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it is what systems do we have to provide trust, where we have this safety net so that people can actually not necessarily stay safe, because psychological safety has this misconception for those who do know about it.
Hmm.
It's that it's going to keep everybody safe, but yes and no. What it does is it helps us to feel safe to explore. It helps
Mm.
us to feel safe to make mistakes. It helps us to feel safe that we won't be mentally harmed. And the people systems are starting with, like, what do you have in policies that make sure that everybody knows where they stand, what their roles are, what they have to do in a day. Like, the more clarity we have, the
Hmm.
more trust will be in the organization. When people don't have clarity, they make up their own stuff.
Hmm.
They fill in the gaps with their own stuff. And then that filling in the gaps with their own stuff sometimes becomes what salon owners blame them for: being lazy, maybe being, too abrupt, or maybe, not following the rules, things like that. And so they get blamed for things that are actually holes in the system oftentimes.
That is so incredible. Yes. Now, as a salon owner myself, we do fall into these patterns, right? Where we take it for granted our team knows it, like, yeah, we're good, all this stuff. Now, I don't know about you in Canada. Where are you in Canada?
Newfoundland. It's like most.
Oh,
Mhm.
you're in Newfoundland. That's so great. Okay. Family connection, that's all. Okay, but anyways.
I love
So,
that.
so rabbit trailing off. In any case, um, so we here where I'm at in Florida, it's very seasonal, right? And so right now we're in the summertime. We are banging our head against the floor. And we're like, oh my God, what is happening? Everybody's on vacation and all that kind of stuff. What do you tell to the salon owners who, like myself, we tell our team, okay, listen, it's slow, it's the summertime. We just gotta hang in there. We're gonna do what we can. We're gonna get people in, get the locals in, all that stuff. How do you get your team to trust you? Because now it's totally dead. Then what do you do?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So all of this, usually the setup comes long before the time,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so there are times where it's so funny because a lot of what I share has to do with emotions, because people often think that emotions have no place in the workplace, but that's actually myth because we're
Totally.
human, we leave them out, right?
Yes.
But case, it's about preparing them with the numbers. If for your case,
Hmm.
what comes to mind for me at first is really having a system that says, okay, we're going to teach you how to budget. Because here's
Mm.
what we know to be true. Like, we don't want to limit ourselves, right? We don't want to necessarily say that you are definitely going to make a lot less money in the summer because we don't know that that's true for sure. But
Yep.
trends show, the numbers show that the summer tends to be slower.
Mhm.
So let's talk about budgeting. Let's talk about
Mm.
missed opportunities. Let's talk about how do we explore what's going on in the chair. Like when I say missed opportunities, what are the things that they could be missing on the upsell that could help generate more income for them,
Mm.
right? So it's really doing everything and we can to everything in our power to make sure that service providers have all the tools that they need to set them up to be prepared for very slow times
Yeah.
if we know there, right? And that's where you're going to build trust because you're going to get them through that slow time. So to
Hmm.
answer your question, sometimes you don't have time to build trust. Trust has to come on the hindsight. It's like I'm asking you to have trust right now. I know that
Yeah.
that's hard because we haven't been through this before. So there are going to be times where you're not you're going to ask permission for trust rather
Mm.
than you to prove trust. And then after you get through it, then they're going to be like, then you debrief it and say, hey, now that let's take a moment. Now that we're at the busier time again, how did that go for you? What
Yeah.
can we do differently next time? How can we do this better? How could I better support you?
Yeah.
And asking those questions and showing up for them, that's how you build it. It really is in one moment at a time, but it's about intention. I find that as I'm coaching more and more, I find that I haven't had a person that I've coached yet who doesn't have amazing intentions,
Hmm.
but not necessarily intentional intentions. So what I mean
Yeah.
by that is that they're not necessarily putting that energy, like they have this great heart, but they're
Hmm.
not necessarily putting the work in that's required to really build those, like I said, peopling systems, which are essentially about building trust and consistency.
Yes, that is so interesting that you say that. I have found that they get, yes, they have good intentions. Yes, they're following all the rules per se, but then they have a total like anxiety attack and they're snipping and snapping at everybody because it's not going the way that they thought. And it's like a total meltdown. And you're like, okay, now what do we do here? So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And it's easy to get into a habit, or it's easy to get into a routine,
Hmm.
especially when things are, they're working, right?
Yeah.
The business is flowing, maybe there's some profit going on, and so we can become complacent. And that happens too, right? So
Mm.
maybe the listeners, some of them have a pretty good business right now.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because one of the things that I started studying, I mean, very intensely
Hmm.
recently
Hmm.
is trust. And there's Stephen Covey has this theory, and it's called the speed of trust.
Ooh.
And the speed of trust is what organizations use in order to, like, they've recognized that on the theme of psychological safety, that teams that had high psychological safety, which means they had high trust, work so much faster, they're more innovative, things move quicker. So if you are owning a business and you have a salon and things are moving at a snail's pace, what if one of the things we haven't thought about is how much trust have I built within the organization? As in,
Mm.
there's a couple areas here. How much trust does the culture have? So is the culture in this high area of like coherence, as in we're all rowing the boat in the same speed, we're all going
Hmm.
together, we're in flow, right? And then with guests, like have has our business built trust with our guests as well? So that's another element there that I
Yeah.
love to share with salon owners is how do we really have that high level of trust with the people who come through our doors.
Yes. And I love that you are putting it that way because I feel everything we do is twofold in the salon, right? because we're wearing different hats, right? So we have it with our team one way, and we got to talk to our team one way, and then we have to flip a switch and talk to our clients another way. But at the end of the day, it is all the same root of the same tree, you know, and we're still trying to build trust with everybody. It's just like
Mhm.
different sides of the coin, you know? Oh, I love how you said that. It's so good. Okay. So, what's an important trait or strength you tell that your coaching clients or just beauty pros in general that they need to have?
You know what, Christine? I really have had a lot of thought on this question. And I have spent many a moment in meditation and wondering if I could share one thing,
Yeah.
right? What would it
Yeah.
be? And over and over and over again, overwhelmingly so, I know it's this, that we are human and we have only so much energy.
Hmm.
And if we are in a job that is expected of us to share our energy with many people, which is exactly what we do,
Hmm.
then it's really, really important for us to make sure that our energy is as high as possible. In other words, as silly as it may sound, that our cup is as full as it can be.
Hmm.
So, energy management is the number one thing I work on with every single client I work with. That's the first thing because there's nothing else we can do if
Hmm.
energy is mismanaged.
Hmm.
After that, there's going to be so many holes and other things that are actually going to be due to we just don't have the energy to do them. And when I say
Hmm.
energy, one, there's so many things that make up energy. Of course, there's physical energy, mental
Yeah.
energy, emotional energy, and spiritual energy. Like there are four different
Hmm.
pots.
Hmm.
But ultimately, there is one that kind of rules them all in for the most part, and it's emotional energy. Because one of the things that happens with us as service providers is burnout is a very high rate in hairstylists. And actually, we have a stat that came out in 2023 from L'Oreal that said 23% of hairstylists have had either burnout, depression, or anxiety in their career. That's 65%. 65%. And so, if that's the number, 65%, and that's people who are aware that they had burnout.
Hmm.
Another word for burnout is compassion fatigue.
Hmm.
So, compassion fatigue comes from over caring. And it's
Hmm.
not that we can't care for people, but it's about the overcare. It's about taking their burdens. It's about, thinking about them long past the time that they left. It's about how drained we feel when a client leaves and then not necessarily doing the things we need to do to bring ourselves back up to a higher feeling, a higher state. And then we have the next person come. And so we haven't recharged enough. All of these things add up. But there's actually one thing that we can do that will help to bring our energy back up every time.
Mm.
And I'm not saying it's easy
Okay.
because the lower we are, like the less energy we have, the harder this feels. But it's a
Hmm.
practice. And we have to have what's called regenerative emotions. Regenerative emotions, if we were going to take the world and put it in black and white, fear and love. There's only two emotions, fear and love.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, when we're in stress mode, burnout mode, anxiety, depression, then we are in fear mode.
Hmm.
And a lot of people actually don't necessarily think of it that way. A lot of like, if I were to come up to somebody and be like, say if they were expressing something and I were to say, "Oh, you're afraid," they're like, "I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated. I'm not afraid."
Right.
That might not be what we come to mind, but it is of the fearful, like as in our
Mhm.
bodies, when we're
Yeah.
thinking things, our bodies are in stress/fear mode.
Right.
And too much of that is when we get all of the mental health, physical health issues that are commonly diagnosed. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get into all that.
Right.
Like, yes, I
Right.
have education on burnout, but I think physiologically we know, right?
Hmm.
And the regenerative emotions, though, those are the love emotions. That is joy, that is gratitude, that is calm, that is peace, that is
Hmm.
everything we say we want,
Yeah.
but yet almost nothing that we work so hard for. In other words, I don't know too many people who intentionally spend their time being like, you know what? And this isn't about spiritual bypassing or anything like this. This isn't about denial of depression or mental illness. This
Okay.
is about going to the mental gym and being like, okay, you know what? Life is hard for me right now.
Hmm.
And because of that, it's even more important for me to look for the little glimmers of good in my day. My brain is probably trained to find the bad. I now have to retrain it to find the good. It is
Hmm.
mental gym work. That is it. But if we don't flood ourselves with as much regenerative emotions as we can, then we are on a hamster wheel,
Hmm.
and a hamster wheel that is going the wrong way towards depletion.
Yeah.
It's so simple, Krystine, and when I say it, I know that like probably everybody listening
Hmm.
gets it. Like it's because it's so simple. But yet I don't know too many people who are in the habit of doing that emotional gym work.
Yes. Yes. If anything, they go, uh-huh, yeah. All right, now how am I supposed to do that when I have, 5 million bills to pay? And yeah, okay, yeah, I know I'm supposed to take a break, but how am I supposed to do that if my clients are, like they go, it is a fear thing. And I love that you said that because all of that angst and anxiety, it's a fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of getting in debt, fear of all of these things. Whoa. That's very cool. Okay. Um, as a coach, right? This happens to me too. I'm sure it happens to you, where they're like, uh-huh, so you must just be fabulous and you don't have any problems. So, my question to you is, what's your biggest struggle that you're going through right now?
Mm,
Personal or professional? Like, let's be real and raw here.
yeah. The biggest struggle that I have right now is remembering all of that when I am still building my business, building my brand.
Mhm.
So finances are up and down, just like you said,
Yeah.
just like in the hair world, right?
Hmm.
So I have times of extreme abundancy. I'm so blessed that, the business has come to a point where I just went through 6 months of having really amazing contracts with big companies.
Cool.
And now, Krystine, at this moment, as I'm sitting here in front of you, the next contract I have isn't until August, so that's another 2 months, right? And so
Hmm.
it's the same fears that can pop up. And what my struggle is right now, and I hesitate to call it a struggle because what we label
Hmm.
becomes right? And
Okay.
so, what I am working through right now, what I'm working through is anytime that I have the fear come up of, am I going to get another big contract like that? Or what's my next big opportunity? And is this business viable?
Mm.
And then I have to remind myself that evidence
Hmm.
has shown when I look at the math that the income is going up every single year. The business is viable every single year. So evidence shows that
Hmm.
it is. And do I want to quit or do I want to trust? And so then I lean into, well, I know the answer to that, trust,
Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
it's work, but it's work. That's not easy. Like I can't tell you 2 years ago, I gave myself until the end of 2023. And I said, if this business doesn't work, because I went from working full time behind the chair, making over six figures, to cutting that down to a quarter, do the math,
Yeah. Yeah.
and going just enough that I could I couldn't even pay all my bills, to be honest.
Hmm.
I had to go into debt to do this.
Hmm.
And so I invested $30,000 in my education up to this over 30,000 at this point because I just spent another $1,000 on a course just recently. So I'm
Hmm.
investing time. I think you get that.
Yeah.
But my point being is that I decided to be okay with going into debt to do this. And I spent many a night worried that I was going to lose everything to build this brand that I believed in so much.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm human. I have all that. But here's the thing I said to myself at that, like those nights, there was one night where I had just too much. And I said, no, There's no way. Here I am talking to people about trust versus fear, love versus fear. Like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm giving myself a day. So I had a day on my calendar and I said, if there's no evidence of growth, then I go back to full-time hairstyling on that day. And it was December 31st, 2023. So January 1st, 2024, if the numbers weren't there, I was going back. And I just said, anytime I worried after that, I said, you got a date. You can't worry. You told yourself you weren't going to worry. So we're not going to go down that rumination path because you have a day. And when that day comes, you make your decision.
Wow, I love that. That is very inspiring. And that is, it's inspiring, but it's also real. Like people think,
Yeah.
oh, you're a coach, so you have everything put together. It's either that extreme or the other extreme is you don't know my life. You talk a lot, but you're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. Not true, guys. So, so what is being a beauty pro, being a coach now? What has been an insult that you have ever gotten that you're just so proud that you got it? Like that's your driving force. What is that
Oh,
for you?
great question. I love that. I have two actually that come to mind. And number one was when I had my diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, which was another fuel for this because I do psychological health and safety, which is
Yes.
different than psychological safety. Psychological health and safety is almost like OHS, occupational health and safety, but for mental health. So my assessment goes a bit deeper than just making sure teams are safe to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like where are you with mental harm within your organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the reason why I think I love psychological safety so much, psychological health and safety so much, is because it is about reducing mental harm. And some of the people that I worked for were great people, but they had no idea how to work with somebody who had generalized anxiety disorder. And if anything, some of the things that they did caused me more harm unintentionally. So when I started sharing about generalized anxiety disorder
Mm-hmm.
online,
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody, a leader of mine, who said to me, are you sure you want to be sharing that? What if it means you won't get hired in the future? And as soon as it was said to me, and this is with like hired within like the brands that I was working with, right? Not necessarily in the salon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew, Krystine, at that time, I was like, this question, although innocent enough and was looking out for me, it wasn't meant to be something that was going to hurt me.
Right.
But that frame of mind that would think that
Mm-hmm.
because somebody has a mental illness that they're not worthy to work, that was what was behind the question. That pushed me to do even more education on what mental illness actually is about and
Mm-hmm.
you break the stigma. So I mean, I was like, ain't no way that we're going to have people's diagnoses be their label that
Yeah.
says that, we're not viable to work
Right.
or that we're not worthy enough to get that big job, that we can't handle it. That is that is not the case. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, I think that people who have like neurodiversity, people who are quote unquote sensitive souls, we're like I heard an article, there was an article written, we're like canaries in the coal mine. Canaries in the coal mine are the ones who tell you that there's toxicity. Well, I am so tired of people saying that, people are too sensitive. Absolutely not. What those people like myself who are so sensitive do, we're canaries in the coal mine. We are the ones who are going to tell you, the level of toxicity, this is not right.
Right.
This is not right. There is no need. This is primal behavior, and we are meant to be an evolved species. An evolved
Mm.
species loves, an evolved species does collaboration, an evolved species lifts each other up. Anything
Right.
less than that is our primal version. And no, I will be the canary in the coal mine forevermore to say, no, I'm not being sensitive. I'm calling out toxicity.
I get chills with that. That's very good. Very good. Okay. What was your second? You had two.
Yeah. When I went in and started this business, I was told by two people that nobody would ever purchase a course on this. And
Wow.
I just did a certification process. It's not a secret. I just did a 6 month leadership certification with Chatters in Canada, which is the number one hair organization of salons, like chain of
Mhm.
salons in Canada. So I just trained 200 of their leaders, along with a partner of mine in Samantha Lacoste is her name. She's a Redken artist as well. And we just created a whole certification process. So I think, I think we're good.
I love it, Stephanie. I love it. Do those people who told you those things, do they say anything? Do they ever like come back to me like, "Oh, I
No,
thought." No, they're gone. Okay, cool.
no.
Good. Out of sight, out of mind. Awesome. So, what so with all of this information, with all of the insults and the struggles and the failures, all that, what is working in this industry? We learn about the human condition a little bit faster, a little bit deeper than, let's say, the mailman. So, what is a lesson that you have learned in the industry that you wish everybody, from the prime minister to the presidents to the mailman, what is it that you wish that they would learn that you've already gotten?
Okay, I can't say for sure I've gotten it because I'm still working
Okay,
on it.
that's
Okay.
okay. It's okay.
Listen more than we speak
Yeah.
and get curious.
Mhm.
Ask more questions than give more answers.
Mhm.
I know that's two things, but it's about the same kind of communication because it's really easy to make an assumption and jump right in there when that's not at all what somebody meant or what they were saying, or sometimes people just need to be heard. That's all.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. What's an area, okay, in your field, in the coaching part and in the industry, what is something that no one agrees with you about?
Oh, I don't know, Kristen. Like other than this business wouldn't be viable. You know what? I think that it's such common sense what I'm sharing that most people agree. I think the only thing that has happened so far that I've been questioned on was I'm going to say two for sure, and a third person had a kind of this idea was that, I'm already babying my staff enough was the idea. Like I feel like I'm already doing all of the like legwork for my staff as it is. Now
Mhm.
you are going to come in with your psychological safety stuff, and am I going to have to am I going to have to baby them even more? And, I got curious about what the babying was. That was the
Mhm.
most extreme way it was posed to me. But, I've had it asked a couple of times, like,
Mhm.
does this mean that I have to be soft on my staff? Does this mean that I don't push my staff? What does this mean?
Mhm.
And, that is actually the opposite of it, is the whole point of all this is to make sure that we set people up to have autonomy. We set people up to be accountable for their own actions, that we
Mhm.
set people up to really take ownership of what they want out of their career. And all we
Mhm.
do is
Mhm.
we help to hold them accountable to what they see for themselves.
Mhm.
And also, of course, to have a standard set that this is what our culture is, this is what we do, this is what we expect of our service providers. We understand if that's not for you as a service provider. We get that we're not for everybody.
Mhm.
But if it does feel like you, come on in, let's do this. And then hold them to that, like, that yes that they said in the beginning, that yes, they wanted what we were offering. And if
Mhm.
not, it's time to part ways. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
that's kind of that's the only opposition or at least questioning I've had is the idea that it was going to be make it too soft for the service providers and that they would become complacent when it's the exact opposite.
Hmm. Yeah. I like that a lot. Okay, so how can, I know you mentioned that you work with the big brands, but do you offer coaching and that for the smaller? Okay, good. So how can people get involved with what you have to offer? I know you have quite a few resources on your Instagram link, but how can they work with you?
I do work with people right now one-on-one, and I'm not like I that will continue always. Right now, there is at this moment there's not a wait list. There has been at times, but yeah, they can come right in. They can DM me or whatever links you'll provide. I'm sure in the show notes they
Yes.
can through there. And then what we usually do is we jump on a quick call to see is this what they're looking for?
Hmm.
Because honestly, what I really am firm about is that what I'm sharing is not necessarily what everybody's ready for at this moment.
Hmm.
And I ask of a commitment to for them to build for themselves. So there has to be a level of willingness there and readiness in that moment to do it. But yeah, like that's pretty much it. And then we go from there. So there's one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
There's also I teach classes all the time and coming up soon. So the investment I just made in myself was to help myself to learn how to develop and market an online course. Like I said, where to put it, where to do all those things. 'Cause it's a whole other beast. Like
Yes.
creating an online course that people can digest at their own time is like that's a beast in itself. So I just invested in that. So that's coming. I thought I could do it on my own. I need help. And I'm all that's why I hire coaches. I know where I need help and I look and I make sure whoever can help me, I find them.
Yeah.
And so eventually they'll be able to purchase the courses online to learn at their own pace as well. And they'll be
Mhm.
offered, for I'll make those will be very affordable as well.
I love
So
it.
that's in the future though. But for now, it's in class, in-person courses. Sometimes I offer webinars that are live, that people
Okay.
can join.
Good.
And so they can keep an eye out for that. The best way for any of that is to join my mailing list so that they know when stuff is coming up.
Hmm.
And yeah,
I
that's pretty
love
much it.
it.
I'm an open book on Instagram when it comes to all that. If I'm doing something, you're gonna know about it.
Yes. So, really quickly, what is one question that I did not ask you that you wish that I did, and how would you have answered?
Oh, you ask such good questions. One question. Honestly, nothing's coming to mind really. I think you asked really, really good questions and
Well,
ones that I
good.
wasn't expecting either, and I've done a few of these podcasts, so that was really fun.
Well, good. I am so happy. We did cover quite a bit, and I feel like the listeners and the watchers, they're definitely have quite a bit to chew on and consider, right? So if you're watching and you're listening, make sure you reach out to Stephanie. We're going to have all of her information in the show notes. Go connect with her on Instagram. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having some time with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. I love this. You were an amazing host. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, until next time, talk to you later.